Last time on, the book was better. This was a long time coming. The Asylum is one of the worst movie production companies around who ruin everything they touch. The effects in this movie are horrible. That's a prop newspaper from a World War II set! There's a fundamental problem in making a T-Rex a thief. I bet you thought what we saw last time was pretty bad. I bet you thought it wouldn't get much worse than that. But oh boy, you are so very, very wrong. The next morning finds Sherlock in such good spirits that you'd never think that he'd gotten his leg slashed open.
You did such a good job stitching me up last night, I'm considering dismissing my tailor.
And the strip of skin that Holmes found in the forest is actually a particular type of rubber, made in a nearby factory. And if that wasn't enough, Lestrade runs into our heroes along the way to the factory.
So, you admit this does have something to do with our case then?
It may, Inspector, it may. One must follow board leads, just as you followed us here.
What are you talking about?
Come now, Inspector. It rained early this morning, did it not? And as I can see that the mud on your shoe is of the same colour and consistency as a type found only in diverse parts of London, including Baker Street.
Now, this may sound incredibly far-fetched, and in some ways it is, but Sherlock was also known for his plot-convenient knowledge of seemingly irrelevant data.
Oh, never. I thought at first it was something clever, but now I see there's nothing in it after all.
In fact, this bit about specific types of dirt came from one of his short stories. It is a little Gary Stu-esque, but remember that Sherlock is supposed to be eccentric, noticing these small details and then remembering them as easily as you would remember your own birthday. So really, I can't fault the movie for making scenes like this. What I can do is blame them for the next scene. Sherlock questions the factory owner, with Lestrade pushing his way inside. The factory owner goes to his office to retrieve some paperwork, but has a little trouble making it out. Needless to say, he gets killed. And then, in a strange turn of events, the dinosaur attack gets covered up when the factory explodes. I have questions about this. I get why the factory owner was killed, but why was he blown up through a window after the dinosaur killed him? The teenager in the alley was chewed on by the dinosaur and left for the newspaper, so why not this guy? How was he blown up so hard that he went through the steel bar reinforced windows when only his face and a few parts of his torso were burned? Frankly, this guy should look like a bloody pile of mashed potatoes. And yet, it still gets dumber! So, with the boss dead,
Sometimes you make me wonder why I spent 7 years in medical school.
the rest of the factory follows classic video game logic and blows up. This then leads Sherlock to some castle in the middle of the country. I admit, I didn't always follow Sherlock's logic in his adventures until he explained it, but I have no idea where they're going with this.
Holmes! Holmes! Why are we here?
I found a small stone, charnacite, embedded in Mr. Walton's remains. The only thing on him that remained uncharred, suggesting that it must have become attached to him as he was thrown onto the street.
Okay, back up! How is a stone supposed to get lodged in someone's clothes during an explosion and yet come out unscathed? And what kind of plot-convenient bullshit lets a stone that large hang onto a dinosaur for so long only to wind up pelting it at someone's ribcage? And for that matter, how did the factory owner get blown up in the first place? Did the dinosaur just happen to bring a bomb with him to murder the guy with? These are the little things you have to pay attention to! And on top of that, how does Sherlock know exactly where this stone came from?
This castle is the only place in England that contains charnacite.
You're pushing it, movie. You only get to use that card so many times. Sherlock and Watson make their way to the basement of the castle, where they discover not only the ninjasaur, but the Kraken, which has somehow shrunk in size. Look, it was big enough to sink what's at least a 150-foot ship, and now it's small enough that you can stuff it next to the Christmas ornaments. Convenient! Not only that, but there's a third monster.
A creature for land, a creature for sea.
and a creature to hunt the doctor. Why is there a Cyberman in this basement? Not being a movie to let a fight scene slip away, the robot thing comes to life, and Sherlock grabs a sword and dirk to defend himself. Though judging from his opening stance, it's obvious that Ben Sider has never held a sword before in his life. This scene is just embarrassing. Sherlock grunts and wheezes his way through battle, like an asthmatic trying to finish a decathlon with only one lung. You'd never guess that Sherlock was actually quite accomplished in a few forms of swordsmanship. Look, the man is clearly known for his brains, but he can still put up a good fight. I referenced the first Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie. This bare-knuckle brawl is a great display of Sherlock's physical prowess, beating up a man twice his size. The Asylum decided that something like that would be too difficult to manage, so they gave us this jarring display of god-awful angles and jump cuts so rapid that the only thing you can see clearly is the paneling on the robot. You can use something like this to create a sympathetic hero, but in this case you'd have to drop everything about the source material to do it.
Drop your weapon if you please.
So the shoulders lady comes back, apparently working with a robot guy. We get a dramatic reveal, and it turns out that the robot guy is actually the wheelchair guy from before.
Hello, brother.
Oh, and apparently he's also Mycroft, Sherlock's older brother. Fans of the BBC's Sherlock might be familiar with Mycroft and possibly enjoy his portrayal by Mark Gatiss. However, that's not the most accurate adaptation. Mycroft first appeared in The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter. He's 7 years older than Sherlock and has an even greater deductive talent than his brother, if you can believe it. However, he's not as great a detective as Sherlock because of his poor health and his lack of ambition. In The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter, Sherlock says that Mycroft has no ambition and no energy. He will not even go out of his way to verify his own solutions and would rather be considered wrong than take the trouble to prove himself right. As we'll see, the Asylum got Mycroft's brilliant mind right, almost cartoonishly so, but oh, they screwed up on everything else. So Mycroft takes Sherlock and Watson down into the basement, where he reveals the finest props from the local community theater. But apparently, thanks to his random robberies in the past few days, and the drugs Dr. Watson unwittingly gave him, Mycroft was able to complete his master plan.
Are you saying you've succeeded in neurotransgeneration?
Neuroregeneration. I managed to rewire myelin and neurons from my ruined central nervous system to this device.
Okay, and in layman's terms?
I control the movements of this synthetic arm with my mind, just as you would move your very own limbs.
You stupid motherfuckers! We're about as far from the Sherlock Holmes novels as we can get right now. This is decidedly deep within the realms of science fiction. And not good science fiction. This is the type that throws out all the rules and bullshits its way through the plot because it doesn't want to use actual science.
Then why not share your success with the rest of the world?
I have spent my life in service to my fellow man. And look what I was given in return.
What? Legitimate superpowers? Oh, I feel so bad for you, you self-pitying twit! What the hell is this guy's character supposed to be? Hyperbolic Bond villain? It's not enough that the Asylum is screwing around with the Sherlock Holmes mythos and creating several plot ideas that don't mesh with the books in the slightest. Even discounting that, Mycroft's cliche motivation completely discounts the fact that his accomplishments would make him a mechanical genius the likes of which would tower over Edison, Tesla, and a few more who haven't even been born yet. The man found a way to remedy paralysis, something we still haven't done 150 years later. If he were to patent his creation, he would become so celebrated that they would erect statues of him in front of Buckingham Palace. And the revenge plot doesn't end there. Not only does Mycroft want revenge on the nation that forgot him, but apparently has a personal vendetta against someone. It seems that the bullet that lodged in his spine didn't come from some criminal he was chasing.
I wasn't shot by any bank robber. No. I was shot from behind by my very own partner.
So Lestrade wasn't the bad guy, but was still a bad guy. Count it! Sherlock rushes to stop Mycroft, but... No! The title character just died with about a third of the movie left. Yeah, this doesn't scream fake out at all.
Good gracious me. I find myself utterly taken in by his cunning ploy, Mr. Vanderbar.
In his grief, Watson charges the shoulder lady and tries to take her out.
Is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bitch?
But the shoulder lady is unaffected by this and injects Watson with a turkey baster. Okay. And this causes Watson to pass out immediately.
Ah, bitch, please.
Watson wakes up to find he's been strapped to some Bond villain-esque device. And no wonder he couldn't choke out the shoulder lady. She was a robot the whole time. Mycroft hooks a bomb into shoulder lady's back with instructions to walk up to Buckingham Palace and explode. And this sucks because I can't decide what joke to go with. So to help me with that is NPC. Thank you, thank you. And our top 5 jokes that Crimson could have used for this scene are... Number 5. Hey girl, you're the bomb. Number 4. Yeah, she's cute, but I like her explosive personality. Number 3. She's got a backside that'll blow you away. Number 2. What the fuck? And to close us out with our last joke, at the expense of the IRA, is our own Irish guy, Alec Finn! What do you get when you take 2 Irishmen and put them in a... Oh, fuck right off!
Now hurry, my dear. You needs must make that train.
You don't think he uses her as a sex robot, do you? So, Mycroft takes Lestrade aboard his airship, and... What the hell? Nope, still didn't calm me down. What the fuck is this? A flying dragon? A goddamn flying dragon. Before the Wright brothers even started experimenting with flight. Who do you think you are, Seto Kaiba?
Blue Ice Flight Dragon Jet. You are cleared for takeoff. I'm sorry, I can't help it. It just looks so stupid.
And with this dramatic reveal, I have to ask, what about the aide taking down Watson's story from the start of the movie? What does she really think about all this?
And then Sherlock Holmes's brother Iron Man climbed into a big robot dragon and flew over London. Oh, those were the good old days. Not like nowadays. All that flies now are aeroplanes. And those have always flown.
Sir, did your medications wear off?
I miss dragons.
So it looks like Watson is doomed to fall victim to this trap that he could probably wriggle out of, considering how loose those chains on his arms are. But he won't have to, because look, Sherlock is alive. Whee!
Good show, man. She got you. She got you. Right in your tobacco box.
So you're telling me that Sherlock was presumed dead, and the most objective sign that Mycroft had to go on was that he fell down.
I only did this. That doesn't mean a person is dead.
He didn't even give some dramatic stare or a groan. He just fell down with his eyes shut. And what sucks is that this could have been a clever display of Mycroft's robotic limitations. The movie could have explained that his robotic limbs can't feel, so Mycroft and his robot assistant can't really take a pulse. I admit that would still fall short because there's a very distinct lack of blood on the floor, but it would show that the Asylum was at least trying to be a little clever. Sherlock and Watson need to catch up to Mycroft, so they turn to some of his other inventions. Watson goes after Shoulder Lady, while Sherlock goes after Mycroft in a hot air balloon equipped with a helicopter blade. A hot air-copter. Watson raids the last of Mycroft's weapons and takes a horse, and then we get this. Did that peacock just break? Mycroft starts his raid on London, planning on framing Lestrade for it. Somehow.
Time to begin your life of crime, Strahd.
The Dragon airship apparently has missiles, a flamethrower that shoots out of the mouth, and the ability to hover in place. I'm sorry, did I call this science fiction before? Because I meant to say pure fantasy. Is the movie serious right now? Because there's no way I can take it seriously when it tells me that someone has a fully functioning attack dragon airship in an otherwise historically accurate 1882. What the hell do you think you are, a dragon rider from the Temeraire series? What really confuses me is that the Asylum had to go out of their way to make this overly ridiculous plot come together. Think of the time they could have saved if they didn't include all these awful special effects or the stupid robotic revenge scheme. They actually had to make things harder for themselves to tell a story that they knew was idiotic. But of course, cheap production budgets and asinine storylines are what define the Asylum, so I guess I'm wasting my breath. While that's going on, the shoulder lady approaches what has to be the worst set of guards in British history.
Halt!
Not a single one of them got a shot off. How are you idiots guarding a palace? Fortunately, Watson shows up just in time to stop Shoulder Lady with a big steel dildo. When do we go from Baker Street to Saints Row? Watson then takes his
7 years of medical school
and completely ignores the wounded guards only a few feet away.
And so I beat up a robotic marvel with a sex toy and became the greatest hero in all of England.
But what about those guards? Didn't they need medical attention?
I'm sorry, dear, you'll have to speak up. I'm very old.
The fight between Sherlock and Mycroft continues, as it turns out that the hot aerocopter has a machine gun on it. Frankly, Sherlock doesn't have a chance. Mycroft is equipped with more weapons than some modern jets. Sherlock is in a balloon. Mycroft just needs to casually bump into him and he'll win the fight. But of course that doesn't happen. Instead, Mycroft sees Watson foil his plans, then flies in to kill the Queen himself. And despite Mycroft being significantly faster, Sherlock manages to catch up to his brother and crashes into him, destroying both vehicles. Mycroft pulls himself from the wreckage and is about to shoot Watson, but Sherlock gets a shot off first, killing his brother. Lestrade is freed and speaks with Sherlock, who reveals that Lestrade couldn't have been the one who paralyzed Mycroft.
The striations on this bullet prove that it came from Mark I.
What?
You weren't to blame.
Well then who the hell did shoot Mycroft? Wait, if Lestrade didn't shoot Mycroft, then doesn't that mean... God damn it!
Holmes and I never again spoke of the events of that night, and to the best of my knowledge, that was the only time I ever knew my friend to fire a gun.
You just had to get one more in, didn't you, movie? Not only was Holmes a marksman, but he actually fired guns in a few adventures, including the Musgrave Ritual, the Hound of the Baskervilles, and the Sign of the Four. So, the writer did enough research to know that a bulldog was a type of handgun from this era, but not enough to know that Sherlock was a renowned sharpshooter? So, the aide finishes writing the story down, which I guess they managed to do in one night. Wow, her wrist must be killing her after writing a whole novel in one sitting.
What a fantastic tale. Tell me, is any of it true?
Was any of that true? How is that even a question? This should have been one of the biggest events in English history, right up there with the Battle of Hastings, everything Winston Churchill did, and giving the world Monty Python. We still have accounts from the Great Fire of London in 1666. Why would something far more impressive not catch international attention? Do you remember how, in the beginning, Watson said that people weren't ready to hear this story? Take a moment to consider how many people were running for their lives. Watson clearly isn't the only one who knows about this event. Instead, I guess Britain is just known as the country that gave us spotted dick. Oh, and apparently Watson chose now of all times to die. Jeez, come on, Watson, it was ridiculous, but your story wasn't that bad. So the aide visits Watson's grave and sees that the shoulder lady is visiting Mycroft, like some immortal, lovelorn witch. Actually, what's she supposed to do now that her master is dead?
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
Wait a minute. T. Holmes? Who the hell is T. Holmes? What do the credits say? Thorpe Holmes? Who the hell is Thorpe? Sherlock only had one brother, Mycroft. They couldn't even get that right. Oh, god damn it. Now most of my ranting about him goes right out the window. Why does the Asylum go out of its way to suck like this? Nothing they do makes sense. Ah, but Crimson, think about it. The Asylum makes movies that are so bad that no one can take them seriously, and yet they manage to stay in business, right? Right. Now, consider Samurai Cop, one of your favorite so bad it's good movies. Those guys tried to make an awesome movie and failed, but gained a cult following because of how bad it was.
Would you like to fuck me?
But for the sequel, they tried to make a bad movie to popularize on the first movie's reputation, and again, failed. The second movie is just boring and confusing. So what's your point? Well, it's really hard to make movies that are so bad it's good intentionally. And be honest, you had fun mocking this movie, didn't you? Yeah, I guess I did. So maybe the Asylum is actually a brilliant company. They have managed to come up with a way to constantly churn out movies that are just fun to make fun of. Don't you see? They've managed to perfect a formula that no one else can come close to. Or they're a bunch of cheap parasitic bastards that deserve endless ridicule. Okay, and time for the ratings. Easy review, the movie gets a 1 out of 5. Oh, come on, like I could give it anything else. Not a single second goes by where something isn't awful, questionable, or so stupid I feel like I'm getting trolled. And I almost mean that literally. The best thing I can say about the movie is that the music isn't bad sometimes, but that's it. Everything else sucks.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Classical literature like Sherlock Holmes is something that I'd almost say needs to be taught more in schools. You know, if most schools weren't terrible. Sherlock's deductive methods are fascinating, and each new story has you grasping onto each minute detail trying to solve the mystery alongside our hero. There's a reason why Sherlock has survived this long and why he's so beloved as a character. If you haven't, you should definitely go out and read these stories. Reading these is giving me a much better appreciation for how good the BBC's Sherlock is. The multiple adventures of Sherlock Holmes earn a 5 out of 5. You're kidding, right? Ugh, God, that was painful. I think we all need a break from how bad that was. Come back next time and we'll see if we can't review something good.